Meg Bohmke. I'm the chairwoman of the Stafford County Board of Supervisors and also a VACo past president. I'm going to be your moderator today for this afternoon's session on housing solutions in Virginia. I'm pleased to introduce our panelists, Chris Thompson with Virginia Housing and Shawn with Smyth County, who is the county administrator, who will share with us ways that Virginia and its counties are working to address needs of the Commonwealth when it comes to increasing more housing. Chris Thompson, Chris, can you raise your hand for me? Thank you, although I'm sure a lot of people know you, is the Director of Strategic Housing at Virginia Housing. He leads a team charged with developing and managing relationships with the Commonwealth's Housing Services Delivery Network. Mr. Thompson coordinates the design and delivery of training intended to strengthen the ability of local officials, land use planners, planning entities, and housing developers to better address local affordable housing and neighborhood revitalization issues. He also identifies strategic opportunities to provide technical assistance to individuals and organizations seeking to undertake transformational revitalization projects. Prior to joining VHDA, he served as Deputy Director for the Housing at the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development. Shawn has been with the Smyth County since July of 2020. He is, as I said before, the county administrator. Prior to his current position, he served as the Community Development Director for Pulaski County, and also he was the town manager for Pulaski County. He's a graduate of Radford University with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology. He is also a graduate of the Sorensen Institute for Political Leadership. So we're going to start with Chris. He has some slides for you. And then Shawn's going to come up, and then we have a few questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience. Please give them a warm welcome.
All right, thank you, everyone. And first of all, truly thank you for sticking around. I was seeing a lot of people with luggage headed outside, so I thought for a while it was just going to be me and the two of us up here and Joe in the back. So thank you for hanging out with us today. I'm going to talk a little bit about Virginia Housing, some of the resources we have, and really, let you have some time to hear from Shawn, because he and his team, and really the whole region, have been doing some really cool things around the housing sector for the last couple of years. But back up and talk a little about Virginia Housing. So we're the state housing finance agency. So folks know us largely because we do mortgages and help people become home buyers through housing education, down payment assistance, closing cost assistance, and mortgage buy down. So we work with a lot of consumers on the home ownership side, and then on the rental side, we do a lot of financing. So with financing, with home ownership, so last year we did a little bit over $1 billion in transactions, about 3,800 mortgages across Virginia. And then on the rental side, we financed just over $600 million, really, in about 3,800 units. Total development cost over $1 billion. That is a slight uptick from the last year. So we had kind of pressed it for a while, but we started to see the market pick up some last year, which was a welcome for all of us. And when we talk about rental housing, we really talk about housing for everyone. It is not just affordable housing. We do mixed income, market rate housing, because we'll talk a little bit more about this later. We're working in communities. Everyone needs housing across kind of all price points, all income spectrum. So really, the conversation is more general about housing and not just income specific type housing. And then what I do is with the team in community outreach, we spend a lot of time on the road, coming out to visit you in communities, walking neighborhoods, talking to stakeholders, just figure out how we can do things a little bit better. And so last year, I should back up and show you, we did just over 700 grants around the Commonwealth and a little over $16 million. So you're probably all wondering, well, how do I get part of that $16 million? So I'm going to talk to you about that and let you know. So for local governments in particular, also like our nonprofits, our kind of quasi-government entities like housing authorities, planning district commissions, economic development authorities, we have an array of grants that you can access to help kind of work through some housing solutions on your end at the local side. And just to note, these grants are truly that they are grants, they are not competitive, they are open submissions, so basically you can come in and apply anytime during the year. There's not a match requirement, so we try to make the entry pretty easy because again, this is a topic that's important to everyone. We need to do all we can to elevate the topic of housing across Virginia. So we've got kind of three main buckets that we put our grants into. So I'll give you some examples of how we've used these in communities, but for our planning side, we can do everything from master planning, site planning, some A&E work, so we can do an engineering report to figure out what the infrastructure looks like or you know, what kind of infrastructure you need to support some future housing development. We could even do some architectural renderings if you need to do some elevations or something to give folks an idea, you know, the kind of style of housing. If you're taking a look at your land use policies, we've got some resources where you could use those to bring in someone to help you kind of go through your zoning, your land use, and figure out, you know, are there some barriers that are inhibiting production? Are there some things you can do to be a little more developer friendly? So we've got a lot of resources on the planning side. You know, just some examples of how we deploy those. So a lot of folks really want to take a first step and just understand the local environment, what the landscape is. So we've seen a lot of local and regional housing assessments. Helps you really kind of quantify what the need is. You look at, you know, do you have a deficit in rental housing and home ownership? What price points? Also, you look at, are there some barriers to development and offering some solutions? So this is just an example of one that New River did a few years ago. They really did an exceptional job, but you know, we've seen a lot of other communities kind of take this on. Also, just some other examples of how we've used our planning dollars. So Dan and Danville, you know, they're experiencing a lot of growth. They've identified some private property owners that own some substantial tracts of land, and partnering with them to just kind of get onto the site. Again, understand, you know, what could be developed there, you know, what kind of cost would be created if necessary. Do some master planning to show what the opportunities are. Pulaski, so I don't know if we have any Pulaski friends here today, but a big shout out to Pulaski. There's been so much happening around the housing industry in the county. Right now, I think between the county and the town, they have 3 schools that are going through adaptive reuse, being converted into apartments, and so we can use our funds to go into properties like that and see are there environmental hazards, or do a feasibility study and figure out, okay, how could you carve this up and get some units out of it. Blacksburg, high cost area there. We worked with Blacksburg to evaluate the feasibility of creating a land trust, land bank, which they've actually moved forward on. Floyd, same thing, master planning on some public property and also some privately owned property, and the list goes on. I did want to call out, we are doing a lot more now with IDAs and EDAs. They're actually taking a more active role in the development sphere. We've seen them go out and purchase properties. We've come in and done some feasibility studies for them where they're looking at maybe doing some mixed-use development. And then also PDCs. Love our PDCs and always give them a lot of praise for the work they've been doing around housing. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the cool things they've been involved with as well. Also, community engagement. So kind of stepping up, these grants can go up to $50,000. So if you're looking at doing community engagement, maybe some design charrettes or stakeholder forums, just trying to get some input, or create some education and awareness campaigns. These are all things that we can help with through our community engagement program. One we did in Alexandria a few years ago that the city was struggling with, how do they stabilize a neighborhood that was feeling a lot of development pressure. They had naturally occurring affordable housing. It was really afraid of losing them. And then on the resident side, residents were very scared about displacement. So the city very thoughtful community engagement process where they brought in developers and stakeholders from the community. And what came out of it was a new land use, kind of an overlay district that would help preserve housing and also provide a density bonus. And Alexandria won a national award for the work that they did. Similarly, in Loudoun County, this was through a foundation working in partnership with the county and some others to talk about, what is housing, and, kind of put a face to housing, because, we still go into communities all the time where, I don't care if it's Eastern Shore, down the Coalfield, Southern Virginia, Northern Virginia, everyone needs housing. But then when you get into some communities, there's strong pushback. And a lot of it is just about messaging and putting a face to housing. And that's what Loudoun County did. They created this great Workforce Housing Now campaign. All this information is online. What I really loved is they did these specific interviews with employees and business owners in certain sectors. So healthcare, hospitality, tourism, basically letting people kind of tell their story about how housing affordability and housing availability is really impacting their lives. It's some really powerful stuff that we see as a great education tool and hopefully helping to change some perceptions when we get out there and start talking about it. And then another grant that we have, a little bit larger grant, up to $150,000. So this is not for just tearing down a single family home. But if you've got a cluster of homes that you're clearing for light removal, and you've got a plan to rebuild that, or maybe you've got a significant property, like a large building that needs to come down, and you've got a plan to build that, we can help with the demolition cost. Conversely, we can also help with the stabilization cost. This is one of my favorite ones. If any of y'all stopped by our booth today, love this project in Big Stone Gap. It was the old lunchtop pharmacy building, had been vacant, it was starting to get dilapidated. Was purchased, and we used some of our stabilization funds to help build out, stabilize the property, also build out the 5 apartments on the top. And then, they came in, did full financing, so they built out those units. There's a restaurant on the main floor, there's some actual co-working space below. And really, at the end of the day, this has been a huge anchor for Big Stone Gap, and just a great use of the funding. Same in Marion, and I don't want to talk too much about this because some of Shawn's may overlap, but Marion has done some really creative things with their EDA and the Planning District Commission to buy a significant amount of blighted properties, blighted parcels, use our funds to clear them, and use some other resources to go back and start putting modular homes on those properties. So they're not just getting rid of blight, they're putting in new home ownership opportunities. So really cool, creative partnership there. And the last one I'll talk about just in terms of our demolition program. This is down in Russell County, down in Lebanon. It's an old motel that had definitely seen better days. Redevelopment for that use was really not the highest and best use. So worked with the local housing authority, they accessed our funds, local funds and others, tore it down, and now they have 21 unit senior housing project that's going to be built in this place. And then the last bucket I'll talk about of our kind of standard resources, we have an innovation program. And innovation used to be focused just on building technology and building processes, but we actually have expanded it now to also support programs and services and partnerships and financing. So we had our first round of the new program last year. We're going to open it back up again in January this year. So some things we've done in the past with our innovation program, we bought a 3D concrete printer, printed homes around the state. Got to displace stick-built housing, factory-built housing, but just to offer some different alternatives to housing construction. Also getting back into kind of more Main Street housing. We've done a lot with manufactured housing, and that's one I would say our agencies are really starting to champion more and more. The fact that manufactured housing offers such an awesome, affordable option. There are a lot of manufactured home communities, mobile home parks that need, significant attention, but also use it just for other home ownership. So this is one in Chesterfield, where the local nonprofit purchased a community, 50 units, and they came in and they started designing a different model of manufactured homes. So these sit on a conditioned crawl space, they have a pitched roof, they're oriented to the front, so you have a little more sense of community. Hardy plank siding, very energy efficient. So that's some work we've done with mobile home communities. And then also for what I call next-gen manufactured housing, I think technically it's cross-mod. This is manufactured housing that's built very similar to state building codes. They're on a permanent foundation, pitched roof, garage or carport, drywall throughout. This was a project we did in Danville to do 5 infill housing units. And what was really great there is, getting back to some of the stigma around manufactured housing. Danville did not allow manufactured housing through their zoning, but they felt this was a really important opportunity and a real good way to meet a certain income point. So they created a new residential overlay to accommodate this. So we're really excited about this. And again, this is something that's on a permanent foundation. That means the purchaser can get a standard mortgage, get all the benefits, you get down payment, closing cost assistance, be in that home for 30 years, and have a mortgage just like you would with any state mortgage. These were just the awards we made this past year. We're doing a couple of modular projects, one over on the eastern shore in Accomack County that are these kind of net zero cottage homes. One that's a multi-family project, 9 units in Richmond, and then some programs and services, helping Marion expand their project down with PDC and doing a few other programs and services. And then the last thing I will close with, again, coming back to my favorites, planning district commissions. So there are 21 in Virginia, and a few years ago we gave them collectively $40 million and said, the local dynamic much better than we do. You're much better plugged in to the needs and the work. Take this money and go find partners and build new housing. It can be for home ownership, it can be for rental. As long as it's new, we don't care. And what has been really fantastic is we got all these great models. So no one did the exact same thing. Some put money into larger projects as gap financing. Some focused on home ownership. We had ones like Marion that focused on modular housing for replacement. We had some that did permanent support housing. So we had all this really cool stuff that was happening around the state. And for us, the real learning experience was you need different models to be responsive to the different local markets. So that program's winding down. We're going to get about 2,300 new housing units out of that. So if you do the simple math on it, you're getting a return on investment of about $18,000 per unit, which, yes, I know that's a leverage with other funds, but that's a pretty good investment for us. And so we are going to roll out another round of this program. It's not going to be at the same 40 million mark. It's going to be at 8 million, so it will be competitive this time. But the hope is that we can continue to do this year after year so we can maybe institutionalize it. So again, big shout out to the PDCs and all those partners that have made that work. And then the last thing I'll say is, we are moving from this conference to the Governor's Housing Conference. It's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in Virginia Beach. I hope some of you will be there, or at least you've got some other staff who will be there. We've got 1,200 people that are coming. We have an innovation village that's going to be focused on a lot of those kind of innovative products I've talked about that will be featured. And we're also hopeful there will be some news, talking about some new housing programs that can also help you. So with that, I'm going to pause and turn it over to Shawn. Thank you.
Get an idea of where I'm looking at. So in Smyth County, I'll go off and add to what Chris was saying about the creativity that's in our region. Our PDC took $2 million from that fund that you finished with, and we've got a pretty large PDC, 6 counties, 2 cities, and they turned theirs into a revolving loan fund of sorts. And split it between loans and grants, between home ownership and some multifamily, and just kind of did the whole gamut. And we were sitting and talking in a regional managers meeting. We get together on a quarterly basis, and the PDC director was telling us about this program that he had, and it got us to thinking about, how can we maximize what we can do with this program specific to Smyth County. And I'm always a little greedy to try and improve Smyth County rather than anybody else, but I'm also regional myself. But we thought about, everybody remembers the ARPA money. We're still trying to deal with the reporting requirements and all that. Smyth County had an interesting way of spending our ARPA money. We used all the COVID CARES Act funds to do the quick stuff, all the true needs that we had. And we took our time with the ARPA money and actually set up a community, grassroots committee, basically, ARPA committee, to figure out and prioritize projects and needs. And housing came out as the top need through all that process. So we set aside $3 million, and we didn't know what we were going to do with it at the time. We just said, okay, we're going to take half of our ARPA money, and we're going to try and figure out something for housing. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to buy some land, do a subdivision, or at least get a subdivision started and do some small 20, 30 lots. But after we were hearing the presentation from the PDC, we got to thinking and sat down with the PDC, and I jokingly said, I'd like to get 100 houses in 3 years out of our $3 million. And can you come up with some ideas? So they came back and they were like, oh, absolutely. It may take 4 years, but we can work up 100 houses. So what we've come up with is we have a 0% interest loan, and there's no payments, there's no penalty if it takes too long to pay back. Basically, I'm going to give you $100,000 to go build a house, and that $100,000 is not going to buy all the material, but it's going to buy the majority of it. And the banks like it because they're not that far out on some of these spec houses. And what happens is you go and spend your $150,000, $180,000 to build a house that's probably going to sell for about $300,000, $320,000. And when you sell it, you pay our $100,000 back, and we put that money back in the loan fund for the next set of houses. The beauty of it is the interest that we're accruing while the money is sitting waiting to be spent is more than enough to pay for the admin fees and for everything else. So we've probably spent $40,000 in admin fees to the PDC, but we're closing in on $200,000 in interest. I will say that our board did want to make sure that the contractors had some skin in the game, so we did a $500 application fee, which if you think about it, is maybe a 0.5% interest rate. But we wanted to call it an application fee, so it was a better set of things. Now, how we're doing. So we've been doing this right at a year, and as of Friday, we had 47 homes in the queue. This is just 1 year. We wanted to get 100 within 3 or 4 years. 13, you'll see there the breakdown. We have 6 development partners in the county now that are actually building houses. Now, this is significant because before we started this program, we looked back at our building permits, 15 years. We have our building permits on electronically for 15 years. We've had 3 spec houses built in 15 years. Now, people build new houses and I'm going to build a house I'm going to live in, but only 3 spec houses that a contractor was going to build and didn't have a buyer for it. In 1 year, or just under 1 year, we have these 47 and probably at least 12 or 13 more that should close by the end of the calendar year. So it's a huge turnaround for us. It's just something that we're far blessed about. So then fast forward to Hurricane Helene. We were affected by the hurricane. We had quite a bit of flooding. A few hundred houses that were affected, identified by FEMA as being affected. A couple hundred more, I believe, were affected. People just don't want to report because they don't want to deal with the FEMA. But we're closing in on $30 million in damage between the residential, the commercial, the farm, the whole gamut. So our biggest concern is a lot of the mobile home parks in Smyth County are in the flood zones. And if you ever driven down I-81, Smyth County goes from exit 55 to 35, and somewhere around 50 to 450, you'll see a lot of trailer parks right on the right, just over the interstate. That's in the Atkins area. A lot of those got hit. A lot of the single trailers on individual lots throughout the county were hit. And it got us to thinking about how can we improve not only the lives of those that live there, making it safer, but improve the tax economy and everything else. So taking what Chris was talking about with the communities, the modular communities, we're trying to identify the properties to build. I'd like to see a 25 a small trailer park, quasi-trailer park coming out of this, and I think it'll grow much bigger than that. So, the beauty of this project that I think we've done is we've taken $3 billion that really wasn't our money. It was the government, the feds gave it to us, and we've invested it into housing to help improve our tax base years down the road. With that money being invested in the VACo program, as I said, we're accruing a good return on that. Chris, folks at Virginia Housing, the people at the PDC, they've been really creative in adding additional funds to the projects that they're working on that helps stretch that $3 million out. So we've, $250,000 or more just in demo grants for the town of Marion. And in 5 years, 10 years, we've been loaning these funds out. It's been paid back. We have new houses, we've been loaning them out, coming back. At the end of it all, we're still going to end up with $3 million in the bank that we can use something else with in 10 years if we find that this housing problem has been solved. I don't expect it to be solved, but that's the beauty of, I think, what we've been able to do is it still has that flexibility. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chris and Shawn. Those were both great presentations. I have a couple questions for them, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. For Chris, when it comes to increasing housing supply, what advice would you give to counties on where to start in concentrating their efforts?
Sure. I'm probably not saying anything that's too novel, but a few things I talked about earlier, just understanding your market. These local regional market studies really help quantify the demand, help figure out where it is, and I will say not every part of Virginia is created equal. So there are places in Virginia where developers just are not paying attention. Doesn't mean there's not a need there, they just don't understand there's a market there. So having some way to actually help show that there is a market that is worth the developer's time is good. So again, understanding the market, looking at your land use policies. Talk about some issues that have come up with zoning, whether it is acreage requirements, set aside requirements, manufactured housing not being allowed, and growth is not necessarily bad. Growth can be managed, and so helping to just understand how you can target growth and maybe make it a little more appealing for locals. And then coming back to just being on message, because obviously you all probably know this, when you get out and start talking about housing, words get thrown around like public housing, subsidized housing, affordable housing, attainable, missing middle, everything. And so pulling back to this is housing for everyone in the community, whether it is the surgeon working at the hospital, the person driving the ambulance, the nurse, the person doing the medical coding. It's housing for everyone. So being able to be champions around housing is really a big way to just get more
And Shawn, congratulations on your achievement award. What advice would you give to other counties that may want to replicate your successful program? And I'll just say, we all know in any kind of development project, construction projects at the county level, we always think that every project is going to be perfect, right? And it never is. It's not a straight line. So I'm sure you have a lesson learned here or there.
Yeah, I would say that the lesson learned is stay out of the folks' way that knows what's going on. You know, we had some great partners with the PDC, but I would, you know, the advice I would throw out is don't be afraid. Sometimes it's hard to invest public dollars, but and do it in a way that makes the citizens happy or keeps you away from criticism. I think what we've been able to pull together in Smyth County is a way to invest those dollars and stay away from criticism, because at the end of the day we still have those funds that we can do something else with, and the tax base is higher. So I would just say don't be afraid of trying something creative.
Okay. This would be a question for both of you. What do you see as the barriers to increasing housing supply in Virginia, and what strategies would you employ to best overcome them?
Sure. Again, you know, nothing novel here. You know, there's certainly land. Yeah, everything costs more. Land costs more. Workforce, labor costs more. Going through the entitlement process, getting permits approved costs more. So, looking at, are there ways that you could help streamline some of that? And some other things effectively used around land that we've seen is a lot of localities making land available, whether it's surplus land, school board land, property owned by the EDA that maybe wasn't fully developed. So looking at, are there ways that you can contribute some assets as well as buildings to support housing development? And then, I'll come back to what hammered on a couple of times is that there's often a lot of very vocal, very well organized opposition to housing. And typically, a lot of those individuals are the ones who show up to meetings, and they're the ones who are providing the pushback, where the beneficiaries aren't necessarily coming out and being represented. So I think part of it is just, again, getting back to message, having some ability to communicate effectively why housing is important for everyone, and being a champion for some of these development projects to get them moving along.
And I'll add in that, I think a locality needs to understand or decide what they want to be when they grow up as far as housing is concerned. In Smyth County, you can come in, we'll give you a building permit in 20 minutes if you want to build a house. I mean, we want you to invest your money in our county. But to have those conversations with your citizens that, and understand the messaging behind what might be coming along, I think that'll be the first thing that I would recommend.
All right, that's good advice. Okay, I have one last question for Chris. As we all know, in the coastal areas, they've been impacted greatly, by the loss of coastal land. So, how would you anticipate dealing with the additional insurance cost as it relates to the coastal areas? And is there anything you all are working on your end to try to deal with this problem?
Yes, I thought we took that question off the table, because there's not a good answer there. I was talking to some folks from the Eastern Shore, I think are still here, just on personal property and how much insurance rates have gone up. Even if you haven't filed a claim, even if there hasn't been an incident, it has been going up. And for us, where we have really been hearing it is from our multifamily rental property owners. They are saying that, in addition to having the costs go up to hire staff and maintain staff, that insurance rates have gone up by 30 to 40% on the premium, and it is really impacting their ability to think about operations. down the road. And so on that line, we have started looking, we've got a little group together that is looking at, are there ways that Virginia Housing can, have some influence on that. Then I think, at the larger level is, looking at, resiliency measures, mitigation measures that can be put in place, and also helping everyone understand, as we've seen with Helene, issues around drinking water is not just limited to coastal areas. It is riverine flooding. It is every part of Virginia that can be susceptible. So I think, looking in the future, how we can build around more resiliency, how we can put some measures in place to be mitigating to natural disasters. But the big thing is, just figuring out, the insurance industry and how this is working. And again, we're putting some ideas out there, but it's still early in our process. So I don't really have a good answer.
Okay, you did your best, that's
That's right.
great. Full transparency,
Yeah.
that's what I call that. Okay, now I'd like to open it up to the audience for questions, and I'll start over here. So if you have a question, if you could please raise your hand. Please, if you could just stand up and introduce yourself and which county you represent,
My name
please.
is Chris McConnell, I'm the supervisor of Smyth County. The question is, what advice do you give to a county that's having a difficult time trying to keep up with workforce housing for our first responders? We've started on, in our county, around $300,000.
Yeah, well, first I would say, are there some, land is always a big driver. So is there any publicly available land that could be set aside and made available for development, either in no cost or low cost? And just looking at ways that you can try to offset some of the developer costs. We've also encouraged folks to go out and look at some of the modular housing facilities, like touring, some of the different manufacturers who can put something in place at a pretty reasonable price. But there is a whole market failure piece of that. A builder's generally going to build to whatever the market's going to absorb. So where we've seen, I guess there'd be a little more traction around the kind of starter home inventory is having like a really solid mission-driven nonprofit that is available, who is looking more at creating housing and not so much the margins. Obviously, margins are important, but and we have seen some of the larger nonprofits that are now expanding into areas outside of their footprint because, again, they understand there's a market and they're finding ways to make it done. So, again, not a very simple answer there, but I think looking at the nonprofits and what role they can play, and then also there's some things that you can do to help offset some of the upfront costs.
Okay, I'm gonna jump, we have another one here, please.
I'm interested to know how, people dealing, counties are dealing with blighted areas. We have properties in our county that children have been inherited property, and we hired a gentleman to go out and serve these people in this blight. It's not been very effective. So, do you have any thoughts on what to do?
In case you didn't hear the question, I'm gonna repeat it for those people in the back. Could you hear? No. Okay, all right. This gentleman was from Russell County, and his question was, we have some blight in the community. Some of it is in areas that have been inherited by people. How do you deal with this blighted situation?
So I'm going to start from our county seat, the town of Marion. They have what's called a bond program. It's blighted. Give everyone underdeveloped, BAUD. There's 4 letters, 4 words. Abandoned, underdeveloped, and so basically they had that person that did the enforcement, and they weren't getting any traction. So they decided to approach the property owners, and instead of being the bad guys and making them tear them down, those properties were donated to the town, and the town took on that cost of the demolition. But all of a sudden, they have a lot. I don't think they were able to rebuild on all of the lots that they acquired, but well over 50 lots that they've acquired throughout the town. And they bought a few, a lot of them have been donated. They had one property owner that was, everybody has, I don't want to say slumlord, but he was pretty close. And he was looking to get out of over 30 units. He sold all 30 to the town all at once with the EDA. So I suggest reaching out to the town of Marion. They've got a really good program, I think, to be modeled around Commonwealth.
And I would just add on to that, so, Shawn had mentioned some of the resources in his presentation, so they come into us twice for $300,000 to clear those sites. Again, not doing individual, just one home at a time, but doing in bulk. So they've been able to, use force account to do that, to save on some of the costs, and also use our resources to clear. And then for those who do need feedback, code enforcement, like the city of Danville has done an excellent job. They've got a process worked out. They will do a code blitz for certain neighborhoods. They will go in, give folks a chance to remedy the situation, but if they don't, they take action. And what the city has done is they will go in and they will bundle those properties together and put them out for RFP for development. So they're not just sitting on them. They'll do what they need to and then turn around and try to put them in productive use.
Okay, anybody else over here? All right, let's move to the other side of the room. Does anybody have any questions for Shawn and Chris? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Maureen from Arlington County. Are there any targeted tools in terms of developing housing, not just at the, developer, whatever market rate they set level, but also not committed to affordable level? I think we have a real struggle of getting new development that's not just maximizing profit, but also isn't, fully publicly subsidized at the 50% AMI or lower level. I think people are really starting to get crunched in that true middle class where there's just nothing else being built.
So let me just repeat the question again, if I may. She's from Arlington County, and she's asking, are there any tools out there that you can use that are not for the traditional big new development that's all for profit and not for all public subsidized housing? What do you have in the middle, and what tools are available for localities?
Yeah, and certainly Arlington's been a front runner for this, address it. It's a court challenges over some of that. A couple things come to mind, and this may not be a solution for everyone, but there's now a statewide community land trust, and it started off with very small with some folks like Maggie Walker around the Richmond area, and a few others. But now they have the ability to do the land trust people. So if there's the potential to get property, get surplus property, other property, put that into the trust, it guarantees affordability into perpetuity. So that's one way. And another way, and Northern Virginia Regional Commission was effective with this too, is that they use some of those funds that we have from the Planning District Commission to put in their own subsidy, using our dollars to do a few home ownership deals as well. So again, it's tough. Sometimes you've got foundations that can do it. I guess for Arlington, you've got your own housing trust fund. I don't know if there've been ways to try to
That pretty much goes to our affordable housing.
Just all
development.
yeah.
We spend all of it every year.
Yeah. So that was the only other thought. If through the local revenue, the local trust fund, there's a way you could carve out a little bit.
Hey, anyone else on this side? Yes, sir. Please stand up.
Thank you. I'm David Bradford, County Supervisor. I'm also how do you get the EDAs purchase land for housing? Just to follow the question to would y'all create a housing department in the county structure?
Did everyone hear that?
No.
Okay. David, on I'm not sure I heard all of it. Could you stand up and just say it a little bit louder and maybe focus a little bit to the back, if you would, please?
So I'm asking, how do you use EDAs to purchase the land in those counties or cities? Explain that a little better. And then also, Smyth County, did you create a housing department in your county administration structure?
Okay, so did you use an what do you have to do in order to use your economic development authority? And then what did Smyth County do? Did they create some LLC or some nonprofit within the county, or did they have an outside kind of nonprofit that ran everything?
So I'll start on the Smyth County side. We're partnering with the Mount Rogers PDC, and they're administering the fund for us, because they already had the setup, the organization in-house. They have a housing developer, a retired contractor / building inspector, building official, housing guru that's on staff, and 2 other employees that help them on the housing side. So we didn't have to worry about hiring internal. As far as the EDAs, I've used our EDA for, the code allows the EDA to do housing. If it's an EDA, and I'm not sure that IDA can, but EDA can do pretty much anything an IDA or housing authority can do. So they can you can get pretty creative with the EDAs.
Yeah, and for us, I mean, we basically just hired someone to focus on outreach to that community. So I stole somebody from the EDP and brought them on board, and they have been going out and talking to EDAs and IDAs about the opportunities. So I think right now, in addition to what's happening down in Shawn's area, Litchville, EDA or IDA, Brunswick County, Lee County, there are 4 or 5 that have gone out and purchased property. They're not necessarily looking to be the ultimate landlord and property owner, but at least securing those properties, getting funds in place to redevelop it, and then ultimately, I think they want to go out, private entity. But really, I think a lot of it's just education around what you can do and trying to make some connections to resources. And as we move forward, without being talked too much, I think some of the new program work that is program opportunities coming out will have EDAs as an eligible applicant. So in addition to local government, planning district commissions, EDAs as well, to take on a pseudo development.
Okay, others, if anybody else would like to ask a question? So I'm gonna throw something out since we have about 15 extra minutes. Is there anybody here in the audience that has done a project that they would like to share with everyone here in the room? Yes,
I was getting
Linda.
ready to leave. So Floyd County, I'm Linda DeVito with Floyd County. And what Floyd County did was,
Linda, if you wanna come up here, you can.
so I'm probably not supposed to speak on this because it's our little secret.
We're not ready to get a secret.
We won't tell you.
Okay, good. So what we did was, we worked with DHCD, Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD. And we said to them, and this is how you have to approach housing, because it's not one size fits all. And so what we did was we said, we're an out-of-the-box thinking kind of place. And we have problems throughout our rural county. We're not like a city or a town where you give us money and we fix housing, like a building and then a building next door and a building next door. So we asked them, could we do a scattered approach? So we had houses that were completely torn down and we built new houses. We had houses that were needing weatherization. We had houses that were in decent shape, they just needed to be fixed up. They needed a new roof. They needed a couple of different things. So DHCD said, yeah, let's try this. So it is now part of their open submission process to do scattered site development. We've managed, it hit at COVID time, so we had hoped that we would have done 15 houses, and they gave us X amount of money to do them. And we're still struggling to finish that 15th house because as we were developing all of this, the price of plywood went from what, $15 to $42. And so the money that we were getting wasn't buying what we had hoped it would buy originally. So it's worked really well. We're going for another planning grant. We're going to go for another round because it may seem like a small amount, but when you have somebody that was living in a home that they could barely afford to heat, they were sleeping with 5 blankets on themselves at night. The wind was blowing through it. And it's in all of your communities. You know that as well as I do. And to know that we've changed the lives of 13, 14, and hopefully we get this 15th one in, just is so gratifying. And what Virginia Housing does as well is give you money to make it work. And when I tell you that the problem seemed insurmountable at the beginning, we all just shook our heads when we found out what some of our neighbors were living through and in. And that was all they knew. And they didn't know that there was any way that we could help them. So you got to think out of the box. You can't be afraid of the problem because it seems so overwhelming. And I think the more our local voices keep preaching how bad housing is, not just where people are living now, but to get people to afford to be able to buy a home, I think at a local level, we all know it, the grassroots works its way up, and that's how we're going to make the change that we want to see. So that's what we did. We took a scattered site. We did the little award.
Yes.
For the little counties. Shawn won the big prize, but we won the small county award. Smaller county, under 50. We're 15,600, so we're really tight. And we don't have a whole lot of extra money. So we depend on grant programs and the like, because we don't have a lot of extra money. I can't believe we got $6 million. I mean, we were thankful for what we got, but it was such a small amount in terms of ARPA and CARES. But we made it work and we did whatever we could with it. But
Great,
anyway,
thank you, Linda.
now I've told you.
If I could just add on to that, she brings up a great point that there's a lot of creativity happening. Reach out to us, reach out to DHCD if you got ideas. And we're happy to talk to you about it, come down and visit, try to work through some of these ideas. Something else just came to mind during that conversation. So typically, our role around housing development is in the rental space. But we were hearing a lot around home ownership development, kind of your question earlier. So we're doing a pilot project with Wise County through their EDA. They are taking land they own, and they are going to take money from us, create a revolving loan fund so they can use that money to go out and do some modest site improvements and infrastructure extensions to the lots, sell those lots, and they have found a builder who will do, affordable housing, modular housing. It's coming out of Tennessee. Build that, and as those homes are sold, most of that money rolls back to the EDA. We keep doing more, and we're going to let a little bit of that money stay in the deal so that it can go for home buyer credit, so that they will get additional money to help, again, make the sales price affordable. Typically, again, not space we play in, but we keep hearing a lot about it. We heard this, great innovative idea with the EDA and public property. We're like, okay, let's take a shot and try that out. So the whole point is just come ask and let's talk.
All right, I see we have one more question, and that's from Ann Malik, our VACo president. Uh-oh, she has a secret too.
but it is just one example. Even for a larger county, the projects can be incredibly daunting, and especially when it's the guinea pig project in our experience before. But we had in 2007 almost 400 unit aged trailer park.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, I was not talking to the microphone. In 2007 in Albemarle, there was a almost 400 unit trailer park which was going to be sold, totally demolished and renovated for market rate. We were fortunate that Habitat of Charlottesville scooped up the property for an astronomical amount of money, and then has spent the subsequent 17 years, putting together partnerships of state resources from Chris's department, from DHCD, sewer, water replacement lines, money, county grants, county staff resources, staff time resources, to help them put together their rezoning package. But the reason to me that this is so special is because it was a non-displacement project. And any family who wished to stay could stay. And the layout for the project is hundreds of acres, but how it was going to be developed was based upon appreciative inquiry, where the members who lived there met for months and months and figured out what their community should look like. And it was really a labor of love on Habitat's part and also county staff's part, because there was a lot of education about what was possible. And I remember stories from the residents about, at first we thought everybody should have this size lot and everybody should have a garden and space to do their home business, and then they realized that then there wouldn't be space for everyone. So they had to figure out how to consolidate and have some bigger and some smaller, and as many options as possible from different types of housing. The first neighborhood of 75 units is now occupied, and the second and third phases are under construction, and COVID came right in the middle, and it has just been a very long process. But I just encourage a similar idea. It may be a county of more than 100,000 people, but the challenges are still just as great. But wonderful successes and wonderful personal survival success can happen if we all work together. And I know you all can do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, it's gonna be a question for Shawn, because
Oh, okay.
I got the privilege of giving them an award for Smith Grove. What was really interesting to see tonight, we were giving them an award for Smith Promise. And I think maybe describing that program a little bit and how it ties into building the workforce, maybe for building trades, because that's something I think a lot of people don't understand, is that the building trades aren't being replenished, nor are the small businesses as well.
So Smyth County is interesting because we're split between two different community college systems. One on the east side is Whitfield Community College, so Marion Senior High would go to Whitfield Community College. And on the west side of the county, it's Virginia Highlands, so Chilhowee and Northwood, they're in their coverage area. So on Whitfield's side, we were the only participant, we were the only county that did not have a guaranteed program. Basically, if you graduate from Smyth County, you can go to Whitfield Community College for free. The other localities in Whitfield's coverage area had that, so we were the hole in the donut. On Virginia Highlands side, they didn't have any of that going. So when, I don't know, maybe a year, 2 years ago, we were talking with our community foundation about ideas of how do we improve workforce development, and they had an idea of doing a scholarship program for nursing. And we said, well, why don't we just increase it for everything, because the schools were trying to do something for teachers. So we ended up setting up what's called the Smith Promise, and partnership with the foundation. And every kid that graduates from any Smyth County high school, any of the three, can go to either one of the community colleges for free. But they have to, of course, do the FAFSA and any other scholarships that come into place first. The beauty is we're in a lower income, higher poverty area, so a lot of the kids that never would have gone to college they qualify for quite a bit of FAFSA. But the problem with a lot of these programs is the FAFSA only controls the academic classes. So the welding and the electrical and those programs aren't covered by the financial aid through FAFSA. But we didn't care because those positions we needed just as much as the nurses and the teachers. So we've taken the extra step with the foundation support. And if the kid wants to go and get their electrical degree or electrical certification, we pay for that too. Hoping and expecting that they'll stay in the community. So we look at that as being one of our workforce programs, in addition to industrial recruitment and all that other economic development jazz. It's been pretty popular, pretty successful. We thought we would spend $100,000 the first year. I think we might have spent 65 or 70. It'll double next year or this year because we have 2 school years going now. But it's definitely worth it because, if we can, if nothing else, just stop the population loss by keeping the kids in the area. And then also, you think about what you would pay an electrician to come and fix an outlet. I mean, $100, $150 an hour. Those kids are staying here. And we're proud of that. But apparently, we're one of the first ones to pay for the electrical on that, or for the workforce side. I haven't heard that anybody else doing it. But I'll tell you, it's a good investment.
So Shawn, that makes me think of something we've done in Stafford County for 20 years, and you all have given me an idea today. We do have a very active, what we call BOOTS program, and that's the building trades that all come together. It's not part of the school division. The BOOTS program is a separate nonprofit, and they have builders on there and other community tradesmen who help. But it's all of the students in our career and technical program that actually come out, build a house every year, sell that house for profit, take the proceeds, buy more land, build another house. So the students are doing all the masonry, electricity, HVAC, you name it, they're doing it. We even have a student from the drafting program that does the design of the home. But the idea that I just got today, as I was standing here listening to you, was taking some of the EDA money, because these homes are all for profit, is maybe using the EDA money to buy down the cost of the house to make it more affordable. So, thank you for your creative ideas.
And you send them to Chris and get some grant funding to pay for the development process.
Yes, awesome. All right, one last chance to, I see one more question back there. Yes, wonderful.
Just 2 things. One is the land trusts, they do work. We created one in Chesterfield as a neighborhood. The challenge with it is, at the end of the day, when the banks appraise it, they're appraising it for less than it actually costs per housing unit because of the infrastructure development. So anything can use to go where there's existing infrastructure makes a huge cost savings. Having said that, where there's infrastructure, the land prices are higher. So it is a challenge. I know that same land trust, I see Jody Rogish here from Henrico. I think embedding some of these land trusts into other zoning cases is something that we're all looking at, because they may only need 20 or 20% of the units of some multifamily place. I know the nonprofit builders, of course, that they are actually much more affordable housing products. We're really, Better Housing Coalition is actually going to be starting a program where you can go from rent to own. And that would be amazing, because a lot of times what we're talking about affordability is a rental product. And as you know, banks kind of limit you for mortgage financing at 30% of income. They ignore, what your rental costs are. And the ones that are most stressed for housing have it above 50%. The last thing is, and I'll maybe talk to, come on camera, Joe. Joe, and some of your policies, housing authorities have tremendous powers. Now, as counties, we're all suspicious of the city housing authorities trying to help us out, wherever we may be. Virginia Housing itself does a good job, but it's a statewide institution. If you don't realize it, I believe under the Code of Virginia, at least for Chesterfield it is, but I think it applies to all of us, you can't create a county housing authority in the state of Virginia unless you go to referendum. And that's just a question that the average person will never understand. If the state of Virginia unleashed that power and let us, maybe through resolutions or other public local processes without the referendum. We may have the powers of a housing authority, county by county, that has all the freedoms and flexibilities to finance. Because nothing against EDAs, it gets very confusing when the EDA starts getting into the housing world, at least where I come from. Doesn't mean it can't be done.
That sounds like a bill for Delegate Jones.
When I've seen your two projects in Chesterfield, when we were in Richmond for the annual conference and we had the tour out there, and what you all did was phenomenal, especially in the trailer park.
Right, you gotta buy these slumlords out, and it costs a fortune.
Yeah, that was really awesome. All right, well, I think our time is up. Let's give them a warm round of applause. Thank you so much for coming.